Welcome back, everybody. It is day 3 of our June art challenge, and we're going to just jump right into it. The colors that I am mixing together here are cadmium red light and Indian yellow, and I'm using more of the Indian yellow to start off with here. And we are just going to start off here with a simple little triangle. I'm going to do mine on the slant here a little bit. You can do yours however you would like. And it's just a good starting off point here. This is going to be kind of like the top of our beach umbrella that we're painting today. And then we are just going to swoop a few lines here to finish off the shape of the umbrella. Well, at least the top of the umbrella, which is what this will end up being. If you are new here, I'm Carrie, and we are painting all month long, 3 paintings each week with a fun weekly theme. And this week's theme is Coastal Cuties, and this is the 3rd painting in that theme. If you've missed the other ones, I do have a playlist. I've got everything organized in one spot so they're easy to find. So I will leave that in the description, or you can just check out my playlists. And that way you can see the challenge that we did in May as well. Now, for this painting today, keeping it somewhat loose, obviously did not start with a sketch. If you're more comfortable starting with a sketch, please do that. But I'm just trying to keep it down to like basic shapes. All right, I've let that completely dry, and now we are going to paint in what is going to be the underside of our umbrella. And you can see I've got a darker mix of our 2 colors, the cadmium red light and the Indian yellow. And you can kind of just see I'm doing curvy lines, bringing them to a point. I think it's probably going to be easier just to see what I'm doing rather than me try to explain it because, words are hard sometimes. And just for your information, I'm using a size 6 round brush. I will link all the supplies I'm using in the description if you would like to look at them, but otherwise, please just use what you have. And use whatever colors you would like. I am going to bring in some pen details at the end, both a black pen and a white gel pen. Here's a look at the 2 colors that I've mixed together for this. And I am now just bringing in the cadmium red light just on its own and just dabbing it in while that underside of the umbrella is still wet. And you can see then it just blends really nicely and just, yeah, I'm just doing more shadows in there, and I love the mixture. It's kind of looking like orange sherbet ice cream, in my opinion. All right, taking some more of that darker orange wash and just doing a couple little, what would you call those? I want to call them pleats, but that's not what they are. You know what I'm saying. Just to give some more shape to the umbrella. If I had to do it again, I would have put them in the underside too, FYI. I would recommend you do that, but I didn't. All right, and I just decided I wanted the underside of the umbrella to be a little bit darker. So I'm adding that same mixture of the red and the yellow that I told you about, and just adding in some more shadows and just tweaking here and there. I just think beach umbrellas, they can be one of those things where wonky is even more wonderful because, I don't know, it's just the charm is in the looseness sometimes. And maybe the wind is blowing a certain way, and so your umbrella is going to be shaped differently, or maybe you're going to add stripes or polka dots, whatever you'd like. Just have fun with this, or do what I'm doing if that's what you're comfortable with. It could actually be really cute to add some fringe as well, but I didn't. And again, just tweaking, I just added a little bit more definition there on that left side. And now I'm going to mix together Prussian blue and coal black, and that is going to give me my background, which I am just imagining is the sky. You can do, sand and sky, you can do ocean and sand, whatever you'd like. I'm just doing a solid background. Well, it's not really going to be solid, but just one color, and I'll show you how I'm going to tweak it a little bit. But I do love the mixture of Prussian blue and black. I just think it's so pretty. And we're just going to fill in our background. And you don't have to be super careful around the umbrella because, again, well, for me anyway, I'm going to bring in my pen later, and I'm just going to be outlining everything anyway. So if you run into it or if you leave some white space, it's all good. Now, if your painting looks strange at this stage or at any stage, don't panic because it's completely normal. Watercolor has its awkward phases, and we will just bring it all together at the end with some ink, like I've mentioned. If you've been around here for a while, you know that I love adding ink at the end of my paintings. And if you're new to watercolor and aren't familiar with adding ink at the end, that's called line and wash. and it's just one of my favorite things to do. Okay, while everything is still wet here, I'm just adding more colors just to darken it up a little bit and add a little bit of variation. And then we're going to do something similar here at the bottom of our page. If you missed day one's video, that's when I went through all the supplies that I'm using, so please feel free to check that out. I will just tell you I am painting on Arches paper, and I've cut it down to approximately 3 by 3 inch squares. I love painting small like this. It keeps things approachable. It feels like less pressure, and it's really perfect when you don't have a ton of time but still want to create something. And I will say one of my paintings that I did in May, the 3 by 3, I found an adorable little picture frame and I gave it as a gift to somebody and she loved it. Okay, here I am coming in and everything is still at least damp, if not wet, in the background. And I'm just adding more of the same color blend. And it's blending nicely because everything is still damp or wet. And it's just, I love the color. And I'm also, the reason I'm kind of adding this more is because I want it to be really wet for the next step, which is just taking a little piece of paper towel and I'm just dabbing it in. You could say for clouds, but I'm really just doing this for just some variation in the background. But yeah, they kind of look like clouds, I guess. Lifting some of that color out of there. I think it looks kind of nice. But yeah, back to painting small. I've really just come to appreciate this size in particular because it just lets you experiment and try out ideas and it builds confidence without you feeling like you have to commit to like some big time-consuming project. I'm using my Sharpie pen here. You can use any pen you've got at this point because we are not adding any more paint. If we were adding more paint or water, you would want to make sure you have a waterproof pen. But I'm using my Sharpie, which is somewhat water resistant, but it's all good at this stage, doesn't matter. And you can see I'm just outlining my umbrella. And this is where, it just covers up any quote unquote mistakes or any spots you don't like, but it also adds a lot of definition and shape. And I just love how it brings everything together. I just think it makes everything pop too. And you can see I am wobbly and scribbly, and you can add just little shadows here with little scribbled lines. You can be a lot more precise than I'm being too. That wouldn't take very much to be more precise than I'm being, but just have fun with the pens. And I often talk about how I like to keep my paintings loose, but in reality, the pen actually adds some structure. Even though I'm scribbling and not being very precise at all, it does add some structure. Okay, now we're bringing in our white gel pen. We're just going to add, again, more scribbly lines, but more like the highlights on top of our umbrella. And again, not being precise, just scribbling these lines in, and I love what that adds to our painting as well. Okay, starting from the top there, I'm just kind of in my mind imagining where the pole is going up into the umbrella, and I'm just drawing it in with my pen. You could also paint it in with your paintbrush, but I'm just scribbling in our little pole here. You don't need a ruler or anything unless you're a person who your brain does need a ruler. In that case, go get your ruler. That's okay. And now we're adding the little support things under the canopy. And you can just kind of flick in some little angled lines to suggest those supports. It doesn't have to be accurate. I really like what those supports added to this. I mean, how satisfying is that? Just a couple scribbles and suddenly it looks finished. And yeah, I think we'll just go ahead and call this one done. Add my signature in the corner, which just gives it another little finishing touch, I think. And that is a wrap for day 3 of our June Art Challenge and the final painting for this week's Coastal Cuties theme. I hope you have fun with this one, and we've got a brand new theme starting next week on Tuesday, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and click the bell so you'll get a notification when I upload our next video. And until then, take good care.